people react the way that they do.
Why do you think he likes young people? So,
It's because it's the same reason why he liked me was the fact that I didn't care who he was. That was the thing. I talked to him like he was a normal human being. And that's what, and kids do that to him because he's not, I mean, he's Michael Jackson, the pop singer, but he's not the god of, the king of pop or anything like that. He's just, a guy who's actually very kid-like himself and wants to go out there and wants to play video games with you.
did parents like encourage it?
They weren't against it. It wasn't like they encouraged it or like pushing me upon it. It was just kind of like I wanted to hang out with him and they were fine with it.
The Michael Jackson movie just smashed records. It opened at #1 in 64 countries and became the biggest opening ever for a music biopic. Before people could even process how massive that was, the director of Leaving Neverland jumped on camera and claimed Michael Jackson was worse than Jeffrey Epstein. That was the comparison he decided to make. Now, people are looking back at those comments in a completely different way because one person has been pushing back against this story for more than 30 years. That person is Macaulay Culkin. First, there needs to be some context. Before getting deeper into everything, you need a quick timeline of how these allegations first started. Back in 1993, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler accused Michael Jackson of sexual abuse. Jackson denied every allegation made against him. The 1993 case ended with a civil settlement, which meant money was paid, but there was no admission of guilt from either side. No criminal charges were filed after that situation. Then, in 2003, another wave of allegations exploded after a television documentary brought major attention back onto Jackson. He was arrested and officially charged. What followed was a huge criminal trial in 2005 involving 14 separate counts. The jury spent 32 hours deliberating over 7 days. What shocked many people was what reportedly happened during the very first vote, before serious discussions even began. 9 out of the 12 jurors reportedly voted to acquit immediately. On June 13, 2005, Michael Jackson was found not guilty on every single charge brought against him. Then came Leaving Neverland. 14 years after the acquittal, director Dan Reed released the HBO documentary in 2019. The project lasted 4 hours and focused entirely on the stories of Wade Robson and James Safechuck. Both men claimed Jackson abused them when they were children. The documentary won a BAFTA award, dominated headlines everywhere, and completely shifted public opinion for a lot of viewers almost overnight.
Someone who had strong views about that mythology is the director Dan Reed of Leaving Neverland. But I will simply share this comment because we obviously know what Leaving Neverland focused on. Variety asked, quote, "How do you feel about the ways the Jacksons have shielded his legacy by producing musicals and films that sidestep his response? Why are they dancing around this?" Which is undisputed. ... And neither the estate, nor the writer of the film, nor anyone else has provided any alternative narrative apart from, oh, he didn't have a childhood, so he needed to spend the night alone with kids, which makes no sense.
But critics of the documentary pointed out something important. Reed reportedly did not include interviews with people who challenged the allegations. No former investigators from the 1993 case. No detectives connected to the 2005 trial. No major cross-examination of the claims being made. Reed also later acknowledged that certain footage questioning parts of the story was not included in the final documentary. Critics looked at Leaving Neverland and said it was not real journalism. They argued it presented only one side while leaving out major details that could have challenged the entire narrative. That brings the focus directly onto Wade Robson and James Safechuck because their stories became the foundation of the documentary. Wade Robson was 10 years old in 1993 when Michael Jackson first came under investigation. Police interviewed him at the time, and Robson said nothing inappropriate had happened. His family defended Jackson publicly and even appeared at a press conference supporting him. Years later, during the 2005 criminal trial, Robson became the first witness called by Jackson's defense team. Under oath, he testified that he had slept in Jackson's bedroom many times and said he was never touched inappropriately. the story he told in court matched the same account he gave investigators back in 1993. James Safechuck also reportedly told authorities in 1993 that nothing inappropriate had happened. Then, everything changed years later. In May 2013, 4 years after Michael Jackson passed away and could no longer respond personally to accusations, Robson filed a lawsuit claiming Jackson had abused him for years, beginning when he was a child. Safechuck later filed his own lawsuit in 2014 with similar allegations. This is where critics say the timeline becomes impossible to ignore. They argue that either Robson and Safechuck were not truthful during sworn testimony and earlier interviews, or their later claims are inaccurate. Both versions of events cannot exist together without major contradictions being questioned.
Just when you thought you knew everything there was to know about the often bizarre life of Michael Jackson, more information is revealed. The FBI has released more than 300 pages of formerly classified documents.
Now enter Macaulay Culkin, one of the biggest child stars in Hollywood history and someone who has been asked about Michael Jackson for decades. Home Alone made Macaulay Culkin one of the biggest faces of the 1990s. Through every controversy, every headline, every documentary, and every fresh wave of accusations connected to Michael Jackson, Culkin has never changed his story. Not once. During the 2005 criminal trial, Culkin reportedly went against the advice of his own team to testify in court. His managers and agents allegedly wanted him far away from the case because of the media chaos surrounding it. Even with all that pressure, Culkin still showed up and testified under oath. He stated that Jackson never touched him inappropriately and never behaved in a disturbing way around him. Culkin also described the allegations against Jackson as absolutely ridiculous. Jackson's defense attorney, Thomas Mesereau, later praised both Culkin and Chris Tucker for standing by Jackson publicly during the trial. Mesereau recalled them saying, "Michael needs us and we're going to be there." According to him, both men ignored advice from people around them because they believed supporting Jackson mattered more than avoiding controversy. Before the trial even started, Culkin also appeared on Larry King Live to address rumors surrounding Neverland Ranch. That interview kept spreading online for years because of how directly he explained the situation. Larry King asked him about staying at Neverland, and Culkin responded, "We played video games, and he had an amusement park." He then addressed the claims people kept making by saying, "They go, oh, they slept in the same bedroom as him." Culkin explained that Jackson's bedroom was massive and spread across multiple levels with several bathrooms. He said people ignored the actual setup and twisted the story without understanding the full picture.
I've watched a lot of things about him. I think somebody once reflected and said, what Michael went through as a child, he had to grow up so fast that he related to what you went through as a child. And I think he, in a way, he was trying to protect you.
Yeah.
I mean, and I got something that was kind of profound. Did you feel that?
Yeah, he reached out to me because a lot of things were happening, big and fast with me. And I think he identified with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's almost easy to try to say, oh, it was like weird or whatever, but it wasn't because it made sense. Like we were legitimate. Like here's the thing: at the end of the day, we were friends in the most simple.
And he was a child in many ways too. He didn't.
But also, like we were just like. It's like one of my friendships that people question only because of the fact that he was the most famous person in the world. Like I'm friends. We're friendly. You know what I mean? And people wouldn't question that. Because we're friends.
Because we're in the same age.
You don't have to explain that. Also, you don't have to explain your friendships to people. Like, I mean, seriously, how many friendships have you had to really explain to people?
Not many.
Culkin also explained why Michael Jackson connected so easily with younger people. He said, "They didn't care who he was. I talked to him like a normal human being. He's just a guy who is very kid-like himself. He wants to play video games." Culkin described Jackson as someone who enjoyed simple activities and felt more comfortable around people who treated him normally instead of like a global superstar. When the topic shifted to the 1993 Chandler settlement, Culkin gave an opinion that still gets discussed years later. He said, "If somebody had done something like that to my kid, I wouldn't just settle for some money. I would make sure the guy was in jail." Culkin then added, "It just really goes to show, they got the money and they ran." By 2020, Michael Jackson had already been gone for more than 10 years. There was no criminal case happening, no upcoming trial, and no obvious benefit for Culkin to keep defending him publicly. Even so, his position never changed. In an Esquire interview from 2020 that was still being mentioned in 2026 coverage, Culkin stated, "I'm going to begin with this. It's not a line, it's the truth. He never did anything to me." He later repeated similar comments during an appearance on the Inside of You podcast with Michael Rosenbaum. Culkin said, "The guy has passed on. If anything, right now is a good time to speak up. If I had something to speak up about, I would totally do it. But no, I never saw anything. He never did anything." Here is another detail that rarely gets mentioned when these conversations happen. Macaulay Culkin is the godfather to all three of Michael Jackson's children, Paris, Prince, and Biggie. That relationship stayed strong long after all the media storms and courtroom battles faded from the headlines. Many people point to that connection as proof that the bond between Culkin and the Jackson family never broke.
In early 2024, Paris Jackson even attended Culkin's Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony. Fans quickly noticed there was an MJ musical poster visible in the background during the event, which sparked even more discussion online. The loyalty between both sides clearly continued into the next generation. Then the conversation exploded again in 2026. The Michael Jackson biopic released on April 24, 2026, directed by Antoine Fuqua and starring Jafar Jackson, Michael's real-life nephew, in the lead role. The movie opened huge internationally. It reportedly hit #1 in 64 of 82 markets during its first weekend and set new records for a music biopic across dozens of countries. Right as the movie started dominating headlines, Dan Reed began giving multiple interviews criticizing both Jackson and the public reactions surrounding the film. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter published on April 24, 2026, the same day the movie premiered, Reed said, "This guy was worse than Jeffrey Epstein. People don't care that he was a child molester. Literally, people just don't care." That same day, during an interview with Global News Canada, Reed also stated, "Short of having actual video evidence of Michael Jackson engaged, I don't know what would be sufficient for people." Reed additionally compared the biopic to making a promotional movie about Harvey Weinstein and questioned why major Hollywood talent would participate in a film celebrating Jackson's life and legacy. In a Variety interview published on April 27th, Dan Reed said he watched the Michael Jackson biopic and strongly criticized the way Jackson was portrayed on screen. Reed described Jackson as, in his own words, a waxwork who performs jukebox songs with zero insight into what makes Jackson tick. He also called Jackson an asexual plastic action doll during the interview. Reed went further by accusing director Antoine Fuqua of making the film mainly for financial reasons. That comment triggered backlash online because critics pointed out that Reed himself has spent years heavily connected to projects centered around Michael Jackson allegations. Reed also accused the filmmakers of intentionally avoiding the abuse allegations in the movie. However, reports about the production painted a more complicated picture than simply removing the topic without explanation. The original screenplay was reportedly written by three-time Oscar nominee John Logan and included the 1993 Jordan Chandler allegations as a major part of the third act. Director Antoine Fuqua later confirmed to The New Yorker that the film originally opened with the 1993 police raid on Neverland Ranch. According to reports, scenes connected to the allegations were fully written into the script and even filmed during production. Then, a major legal issue reportedly changed everything behind the scenes. Lawyers connected to the Jackson estate, who were also involved as producers on the project, allegedly discovered a clause hidden inside the 1994 civil settlement agreement involving the Chandler family. That discovery reportedly forced the production team to rethink major parts of the movie before release.
You guys, you're not going to believe this. Yes, Jordan Chandler, the son, was literally drugged by his father dentist Dr. Evan Chandler into a confession. This is from an article at that time.
That clause reportedly prevented Jordan Chandler from ever being portrayed or even mentioned in any film project. According to reports, the restriction existed until after major parts of the movie had already been planned and filmed. What looked from the outside like a deliberate decision to avoid the allegations reportedly turned into a massive legal problem behind the scenes. The fallout was expensive. Reports claim the filmmakers had to complete 22 emergency days of reshoots after discovering the issue. Production was moved from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles, which allegedly caused the movie to lose valuable state tax incentives. The extra filming reportedly added another $10 to $15 million onto a budget that was already around $155 million. The release date was also delayed by an entire year, moving from April 2025 to April 2026. Lionsgate later described the movie as essentially a first part, which left the possibility open for a sequel that could directly focus on the allegations period and later controversies surrounding Jackson. Because of that, supporters of the film argue the topic was delayed rather than completely erased from the story. This also connects to why Dan Reed continues speaking publicly about Michael Jackson so often in 2026. Critics argue Reed is not approaching the situation as a neutral journalist, but as a filmmaker closely tied to ongoing legal battles connected to the allegations. Wade Robson and James Safechuck are currently involved in a civil lawsuit against MJJ Productions and MJJ Ventures, companies formerly connected to Jackson. The reported trial date is set for November 2026, with claims seeking around $400 million in damages. Reports also state that the Jackson estate rejected previous settlement offers. Reed previously released Leaving Neverland 2 on YouTube in 2025, which followed Robson and Safechuck as they prepared for the upcoming court case. And reports say he is now developing another documentary focused on the trial itself.
So what do you make of what he's going through now?
Like I said, it's unfortunate, and it's a circus right now.
You think it's a bad rap?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, listen, look what happened the first time this happened to him. If someone had done something like that to my kid, I wouldn't just settle for some money. I'd make sure the guy was in jail.
So think about the timing behind all of this. Every worse than Epstein headline, every major interview with outlets like The Hollywood Reporter, every public attack aimed at the biopic right as it opened across 64 countries. Critics believe Dan Reed is not simply speaking to the public. They argue he is also influencing potential public opinion ahead of the upcoming legal battle in Los Angeles during November 2026. That is where the FBI investigation becomes part of the discussion again, because many people feel it rarely gets mentioned in modern media coverage surrounding Michael Jackson. The FBI first opened an investigation connected to Jackson in the early 1990s, after the first allegations surfaced in 1993. Federal agents reportedly spent years examining claims involving alleged misconduct with minors. According to released records and reports, the investigation lasted from 1993 until 2005. Authorities reportedly used major investigative resources during that time, including surveillance operations and forensic analysis connected to evidence collected during raids. During the 2003 Neverland Ranch investigation, agents reportedly seized 16 hard drives that were later examined by the FBI Computer Analysis Response Team. According to supporters of Jackson, investigators did not publicly report finding incriminating material involving illegal content on those drives. The FBI later released hundreds of pages of files connected to the investigation in 2009. Across those documents, supporters argue that a large portion of the material focused on allegations of extortion attempts, threats, and efforts targeting Jackson financially, rather than evidence proving criminal misconduct. The case remains heavily debated today, with different sides continuing to interpret the same investigations and public records in completely different ways.
It's also come out a man allegedly obsessed with Jacko's sister Janet threatened to kill the star and thousands of his fans if he wasn't given half of the singer's fortune.
Now comes one of the most debated parts of the entire story. Jordan Chandler, the original 1993 accuser, was reportedly contacted by FBI agents in 2004, ahead of Michael Jackson's 2005 criminal trial. Investigators allegedly wanted Chandler to testify in court because prosecutors believed his testimony could strengthen their case. According to reports, agents traveled to meet with Chandler and explained what they were asking from him. Chandler reportedly refused to testify against Jackson under any circumstances. Reports also stated that he was prepared to challenge any legal attempt to force him into court. On December 9, 2004, that investigative path was reportedly closed. Documents connected to the case stated there were no outstanding leads or remaining evidence items tied to that line of investigation. Supporters of Jackson often point to this moment as one of the biggest unanswered questions in the entire case. They ask why the person whose allegations originally triggered worldwide headlines in 1993 reportedly chose not to participate when a major criminal trial later took place.
Then demanded $20 million privately from Michael Jackson to not make it public. He also took his son to a psychiatrist and made his son describe graphic details of what Jackson had done to him, but not to any of the other boys who were present as well.
Then came June 13, 2005, when Michael Jackson was acquitted on all counts during the criminal trial. Critics of Dan Reed often compare those trial results and FBI findings against Reed's later comments, calling Jackson worse than Jeffrey Epstein. They also point to the years-long federal investigation, the forensic searches involving seized hard drives, the jury vote reportedly favoring acquittal early in deliberations, and Macaulay Culkin consistently repeating the same defense of Jackson for decades. The FBI files ended up becoming part of the same argument people have been debating for years. Supporters of Michael Jackson point to the investigations, court testimony, and statements from people like Macaulay Culkin as proof there was another side to the story that often gets ignored in documentaries and media coverage. Critics, on the other hand, continue to defend Dan Reed's documentary and the allegations presented in it. That debate still has not slowed down. Then, another controversy exploded online in late 2025, after the DOJ released more than 300,000 pages connected to Jeffrey Epstein. One image immediately spread across social media. The photo showed Michael Jackson standing next to Epstein at Epstein's Palm Beach property. Dan Reed referenced the image while continuing his public criticism of Jackson, and the internet quickly turned the photo into another massive headline. A few days later, on December 20th, 2025, Michael Jackson's former bodyguard, Matt Fittis, publicly responded with a statement titled, "The Truth About This Epstein-Michael Jackson Photo." Fittis claimed he was physically there when the picture was taken and explained the situation differently from how it was being presented online. According to Fittis, Michael Jackson had been looking at properties in Palm Beach because he wanted to live closer to Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees, who he had been working with musically at the time. Jackson's team reportedly arranged several luxury home viewings in the area, and one of the homes listed for sale happened to belong to Epstein. Supporters of Jackson argued that the photo alone did not prove a personal relationship between the two men. Now the question goes to you. Do you think the Michael Jackson biopic made the right decision by leaving out the allegations because of the legal issues behind the scenes? Or do you think the filmmakers should have found a way to include that part of the story anyway? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone following the controversy, because this debate is clearly far from over.